We are back for yet another early season predictions video for college football. I did the whole SEC. I started doing out of conference teams. I did Oklahoma last time, which, by the way, Oklahoma fans showed up. I got a ton of likes, like over 600 on that video. So you know what you got to do. Hit that sub button and that like button down below. And I got a little special treat for you Texas fans too going into this video. We all know the storyline for the Texas Longhorns going into this season. Coach Tom Herman gets fired, and you bring in none other than Nick Saban's assistant, Steve Sarkisian, one of the greatest offensive coordinators to ever be in that Alabama program. You saw the eliteness of that Alabama offense last year. He is now the head coach of this Texas football team. And for you guys, because I did this for my Gamecocks when we went out and we got a new coach, I feel like Texas fans want the same thing. It's summer. It's t-shirt weather. It's getting back. The warm weather is coming back, and you guys need to rock your new head ball coach around while you walk around Texas and support your team. That is right. I got Sarkisian 2021 shirts. Make Texas great again. By the way, that is not political for all of you that are about to go at me in the comments. You guys need to show off your new head ball coach. I'm using a new vendor for this. I have tested this vendor before, and trust me, guys, like I'll show you right here on screen. I got one of the t-shirts that I have from him. This is from a design that from another channel I work for, but I've worn this shirt a ton. This graphic hasn't changed a bit. It is still as good as when I first got it. It hasn't faded at all. The shirt is one of the most comfortable shirts I have. Like, trust me, Bella and Canvas, if you've ever had any shirts from them, you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's literally like you're wearing a blanket, yet it's also breathable and very, very comfortable to wear outside and doing athletic activities. So guys, Sarkisian 2021, go get your shirts. The link will be in the bio. Do not miss out. Shirts are only like $20. So you're getting a great deal, and you're repping your new head ball coach around before the season, because the 2021 season, which what we are going to talk about here, it's going to be a very interesting one for Texas. It is going to be one with a lot of mysteries going in, one with a lot of question marks going in. First of all, how is this team going to do? Should the expectations should be going into the season for Texas? And that's what we're here to do in this video. In this video, we're going to do a bit of a recap of the Texas Longhorns in 2020. We're going to look through their 2021 schedule, look at some of their losses, look at how their lineups are going for, and go through some key players on both sides of the ball, look at the recruiting class this year, and then we finish up with wins, toss-ups, and losses, the most exciting part of every video. It's where I break down what games for Texas are wins, what games are toss-ups, and what games are losses. So we got an absolutely packed slate, as we do for every single video. And guys, I'd really, really appreciate it if you did hit that like button and subscribe button down below. It really helps share the video and everything. And we love college football on this channel. And if you love college football, which I'm guessing you do, this is definitely the channel for you. So you want to stick around. I want to see you stick around for lots of more great college football content. First, let's start off by talking about how Texas did in 2020, because we know it was a slow start for the Texas Longhorns in 2020, as well as the Oklahoma Sooners. It was kind of like the two big juggernauts in the Big 12 had a really, really slow start to the season. Yes, Texas does go out, they win their first two games, but then you have that big loss against TCU, and then you go on and you lose the Cotton Bowl in 4 overtimes to Oklahoma. After that, you beat Baylor, you beat Oklahoma State in an overtime game, which I picked that game, and I take extreme pride in being able to pick that game, because I knew Oklahoma State was overrated all season, and I knew that they were going to drop a game to Texas or Oklahoma, and guess what? They did both. They beat West Virginia. They lose a close game to Iowa State, who is a very, very good team, and they were last year, and they're going to continue to be this year. They only lost by 3 in that game, and then finish up the season beating Kansas State by a ton, and then winning, what bowl was it? The Valero Alamo Bowl against Colorado. Obviously, you have Sam Ehlinger in as your quarterback all of last season. With COVID and everything, it was hard to there's so much up in the air of like how programs were running, how different everything was. And honestly, Texas was able to go out and finish the season strong, which I think is the most important part about this season. Yes, you lose 2 games early on, which kind of kills all your playoff hopes and kills all your hopes of maybe a New Year's Six bowl, although maybe not. If you go out and win the Big 12, you're looking at a New Year's Six bowl like Oklahoma did. But the fact that this team was still able to fight on and win some pretty big games shows a lot about where this program is headed and what you're going into with Steve Sarkisian. Now we got to break down this 2021 schedule for the Texas Longhorns, because we're finally back to a regular schedule in the Big 12. Last year you have one out-of-conference opponent, and this year back to 3 with the whole Big 12 slate. So let's take a look at the schedule. Starting off on September the 4th, you're at home versus Louisiana Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns, who, don't be mistaken, last year that team was actually really, really good, found themselves winning some big games, and had a good season in the Sun Belt. So that is a game. Yes, you have it at home. It's your first game of the season, but do not write the Raging Cajuns off the board just yet. Following that up with another big game, Arkansas, team on the rise in the SEC, and you go to DWR Razorback Stadium in Arkansas for that game. So that's going to be a big game on September 11th. You come back home against Rice on the 18th. You stay at home on the 25th against Texas Tech. Then you travel to TCU on the 2nd. Then you got the big Cotton Bowl game, the Red River Showdown against Oklahoma on the 9th. That is in Dallas, Texas, of course. Then you go to, you're back home on the 16th to play Oklahoma State. Then you got your bye on the 23rd, October the 23rd. Then on October 30th, you're in Baylor. Then on November 6th, you're in Iowa State. Then on November 13th, you are back home against Kansas. Then you're away in Morgantown on November the 20th. And then finishing it up with a home game versus the Kansas State Wildcats on the 27th. And then I put this for every single team, but I think that this is a really realistic goal for the Texas Longhorns this season. Big 12 championship date is on December the 4th. That is the big I think that's the big dance for what Texas should be looking at this season. I don't think they're a playoff sleeper right now, but I don't think that should be your first goal. Of course, you want to shoot for the stars, but I think it would be a really, really solid start for Steve Sarkisian if they are able to get past teams like Oklahoma and Iowa State and get to that Big 12 championship and maybe even win. Maybe shock some people and go ahead and win that. So I think that is definitely a date that Texas Longhorns fans should have circled on their schedules. Let's take a look at who, first of all, some of the key players that Texas lost this season, because there are a couple big names on here. Let's take a look at who's going to be their key players on both sides of the ball, and then we'll get into their recruiting class for this season. So starting off with the players that they lost this season, you look at Samuel Cosme, you look at Joseph Osai, you look at Brennan Eagles, and you look at Sam Ehlinger. Obviously, you lose your longtime quarterback in Sam Ehlinger. He looked like he was going to be your guy, of course, after the whole Georgia thing. He says, we're back, and nothing really happened after then, which was disappointing for Texas. But you bring in a new quarterback this season. Well, he's not new, but he's going to be new to the role as the full-time starter in Casey Thompson, which we're going to get into later. Brennan Eagles was a really, really good wide receiver. And then you got Joseph Osai and Samuel Cosme, who are going to be at least, I think, Osai is going to go, or Cosme's going to go in the first round, and then you're going to have Osai second, third round in the NFL draft. So you're losing some big guys there. But other than that, especially for the offensive line, you got Cosme as your only guy that you lose on the O-line. So I think that that's going to be huge. Returning experience to your offensive line, especially with the guy that I'm going to talk about in just a second at the running back position, because this Texas running game could be one of the most electric running games in all of college football. And I do mean that in all of college football in the whole country, because you got a winner back there, and if you have the line to hold him up, Texas is going to be put in a good situation this year. So let's talk about key offensive players. Casey Thompson, obviously, going in at the quarterback position. He played against Colorado in the last game of the season, and they won that game by a pretty good amount. Like, that Texas team was rolling, that offense was rolling. So I think him going in, he's had some experience, which I think is really big going into this season. But Casey Thompson, let's see how he does. I think he's a real good fit for a Big 12 offense. Let's see what Sark does with him, because we know he is the offensive specialist, and you got some pieces on this offense to do something pretty special. And let's talk about one of the receivers that he's going to be throwing to this season, Josh Moore. I think Josh Moore is going to be the top target for the Texas Longhorns this season going in. And then talking about the running back, Bijan Robinson. Of course, I was talking about that offensive line earlier, but Bijan Robinson is going to be one of the best running backs in all of college football this season. This guy's got Heisman talks coming around him. So the building blocks for Sark going into this season with the offense, 112.67, 1, 2, 3, whatever you want to call it. They're there. They're there. The building blocks for a good offense is there for the Texas Longhorns. So that is definitely something to get excited about this season. Alfred Collins, you go on to the defensive side of the ball. He's going to be a huge factor in the defensive front for Texas this season. Obviously going to be one of the better players on this defense. But then you look at which of the rooms are going to be better. Which defensive unit is really, really going to help this Texas defense because we know offense rules the Big 12. You need a defense to just make those 1 or 2 big stops a game to be able to come out with some big wins in Big 12. I'm looking at the middle linebacker core for this Texas team. You got Overshown, and then you got Jawan Mitchell. First of all, Overshown has one of the best last names in all of college football. I love that game. When I was doing my whole college football revamped dynasty with Texas, I always used Overshown, and it is just a sick last name to have. Of course, that's off topic, but I feel like this middle linebacker room for Texas is going to be the core and the real strength of this defense. So that's something that you're really going to have to build on with Texas and play around them. And then finally, looking at another key factor, Deshaun Jameson, the best cornerback on the Texas Longhorns. Those guys, those 4 guys that I just named, are going to be the core of this Texas defense and really the strength. But I look at this Texas team so far, talent is all I see, and I feel like talent is always something Texas will have just because of the name Texas. That doesn't win you championships. Talent alone does not win you championships. It's coaching. It's how you put that talent together and how you work that talent, because we've seen teams with immense talent before just not work at all. Like, you look at that 2019 Alabama team. Yes, they dealt with injuries with Tua and everything, but you still have Mac Jones, who's one of the greatest quarterbacks this season. They had Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, Jalen Waddle, all of those guys still on that team, and a really, really stacked defense. And they don't even finish top 10 in all of college football. So, it doesn't just matter what talent you have. Let's move on to the 2021 recruiting for Texas this season. They finish out, I think, like 17th, 16th nationwide. Your big 5-star recruit, 12th best in the nation, Jatavian Sanders, obviously is an athlete out of Texas. So he's your big guy out of that recruiting class. But then you look at some other guys here, like just naming off names. Ishmael Ibrahim, cornerback, 198th best in the country, 14th best cornerback in the country. Then you go to J.D. Coffey, safety, 157th best, 7th best safety in the nation. I think you got like 9 4-stars in this recruiting class. So they finished 16th in the country. Can't complain there. Obviously, you like it to be a bit better, and it already has been a bit better because I'm pretty sure Texas is in the top 10 right now for 2022 recruiting. So it will get better, a solid recruiting class this season, but I think Texas is really going to kick it into the next year, in the next coming years. Let's get into the most exciting part of the video, what I hinted at before: wins, toss-ups, and losses. Everyone loves this part because this is the part where you either love me or hate me depending on how I put your team. And I honestly think the Texas fans are going to love me for this because you look at this straight away. First of all, I want to talk about the percentages at the bottom. That is win confidence. I had to start putting this in when people did not listen to what I had to say about each of these games and they just saw the graphic and then lost it on me in the comments. 100% and 75%. That is the amount of win confidence that I have in Texas to get a win. So anything that is between 175, I will mark that as a win. Anything from 75 to 26, 74 to 26, I will mark that as a toss-up. And anything 25 and below, I will mark that as a loss. So let's start out with this win category. The Raging Cajuns, yes, they had a really good season last year. I still think, especially first game of the season at home for Texas, this is definitely a winnable game and a game they should win. That Arkansas game was on the cusp of being a toss-up. You travel to Arkansas. Yes, I think that Texas has the talent. They out-talent Arkansas, but you travel, and Arkansas is a tough place to play, and this is a team on the rise. This Arkansas team is on the rise, and they're a team just figuring things out with Sam Pittman. So that was one that was very, very, very close to being a toss-up. So that might be an upset alert game for the Texas Longhorns early on in the season. Rice, I think, is a win. Texas Tech, I think, is a win. Oklahoma State, I think that they're still going to be a bit overrated going into the season, so I'm going to mark that as a win, especially that you get them at home this year. Baylor, even though you travel to Baylor, I'm pretty sure that is going to be a win. Kansas, West Virginia, and Kansas State, I all have as wins. Now you look at my toss-ups for this Texas team because I think most Texas fans will agree Oklahoma and Iowa State is a fair argument, but that TCU one is the one that's going to turn the most heads. You lose to TCU last year. You have to travel to TCU this year. I'm not saying that TCU is going to be favored in this game, but I have it at like a 70% chance win confidence in Texas being able to win this game. But I just feel worried. I feel really worried about TCU. Was a team that got hot at the end of the season. They won a lot of really, really good games towards the end of the season. I remember they beat Iowa State towards the end of the season. TCU could be a team to watch this season. So that's not a game that I want to call a win straight off the bat. I think Oklahoma's obvious. Of course, they have an amazing finish to their season last year, and they're coming in being one of the better teams in all of college football this season. I have them making the playoffs this year. I think that they're a really good team. I'd favor Oklahoma in this game. I know it hurts to say, Texas fans, but I would have Oklahoma favored in this game. They're a really good team. Spencer Rattler's probably going to be the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft this year. You just got so much talent. They hit the transfer portal really good. This defense for Oklahoma is really good. Everything about Oklahoma is really good this season. So that's going to be a tough game. And then you look at the Iowa State team. They have, of course, the best running back in all of college football in Breece Hall. And this offense is pretty much staying together. So that's why I want to keep Iowa State up there. I think that this is a true 50-50. I can't call this right now between who's going to win, Iowa State or Texas. But I do think that that's going to be a really, really good game. And where's that game? I think that game is an away game. Yeah, it's an away game for Texas. So, of course, I don't want to call that an automatic win yet, especially against a good team in Iowa State. So now let's go into realistic record. Let's go into worst case scenario and best case scenario. So worst case scenario, I say I'm going to go 7-5. No, I'm going to go 8-4. 8-4. You lose all your toss-ups, and then you lose that Arkansas game. You win all the rest of your, or 7-5. You could also throw in Oklahoma State there, but I think that is the worst case scenario for Texas for Sark's first season. You go out, you make it to a bowl game at least, but that is your worst case scenario. I'm going to go best case scenario. I think best case scenario, it's fair to say that this team is capable of going 12-0. You put the pieces right together, and this team is going to be in business, and they compete with the best of them. And I think that Oklahoma, TCU, and Iowa State could all easily be wins if this team is firing out on all cylinders. So I'm going to go 12-0 is the best case scenario for Texas here. I'm going to go realistic. That's tough. Realistic, I'm going to go 10-2, 11-1. 10-2, 11-1. You probably could make the Big 12 championship with 11-1. I'm saying 11-1, your one loss is to Oklahoma. 10-2, your loss is to Iowa State and Oklahoma. I think that is a very realistic and very fair record for Texas going into this season with the new head ball coach, who is a very good coach. Like, we know what he can do with offenses and everything, but I just think Oklahoma right now is a step ahead of them. In that Iowa State game, again, I can't call it, so I'm going realistic. I'll put my money on 11-1. I'll say 11-1 to make you guys happy. So realistic, 11-1. Best case scenario, 12-0, and then worst case scenario, I'm going 8-4, 7-5 range. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. I really, really appreciate it. Of course, hook 'em horns. I wish you guys the best of luck this season. I'm a Gamecocks fan, if you couldn't see behind me, so we don't play this year, but I hope to follow Texas football this season because, of course, Big 12 is always entertaining. Lots of good football always being played in the Big 12, and I like to keep an eye on it. So thank you for tuning into this video, guys. Go get your Sark shirts, like the video, subscribe, comment what you think your record this year is going to be for Texas, and thank you for watching, and definitely come back next time.